Good evening, guys, and welcome to interview preparation session, which is being conducting by 360 Digi TMG. And in today's session, we'll see some basic questions regarding Python programming language. So, as of now, first question for the day, guys. So, what is a dynamically typed language in Python? So, what does it actually means? So, if anyone has an idea on it, they can just please ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, so this Python is both a strongly typed and a dynamically typed language. So strongly typing means the variable which doesn't have any type, and the type matters well. This type this basically matters the performance, how that particular language is performing with respect to the operations we are doing, the variables we are going across. Each and everything will just does matters, and this dynamically typing means the type of the variable is determined only during this runtime. So that's how it is. So as we jump into the next question, so what are list and tuples, and what's the key difference between them? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. So as we all know, this list, tuples, dictionaries, these are all the data types in Python programming language. So among this, we are just discussing about list and tuple. So this both the list and tuples are the data types that can store the collection of objects in the Python programming language. So this objects, it basically stores both the sequences and the data types. So the representation of list can be represented inside the square braces, whereas the representation of tuples is represented in between parentheses. So if you ask me what's the main difference between them, the key difference between them is to lists are mutable, whereas tuples are immutable objects. So this is the main difference between list and a tuple in the data types. Okay. So as we jump into the next question, so what is a pass in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, so this pass keyword, it basically represents the null operation in Python. So it is generally used for filling up the empty blocks of code, which may execute during the runtime but has yet to be written. So so that's how this pass keyword works. So as we jump into the next question, so what is break, continue, and pass keywords in Python? So if anyone has an idea, they can just ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, so the break. So this break statement, it basically terminates loop immediately after the control flows to the statement after the body of the loop. And this continue statement, it terminates the current iteration of the statement and skips the rest of the code in the current iteration and the current flow to the next iteration of the loop. Pass, as explained above, this keyword is Python is generally used to fill up empty blocks, which is as similar to empty statements in the semicolons like Java, C++, JavaScript, whatever it might be. So in that cases, we mostly prefer this. So as we jump into the next question, what are decorators in Python? So if anyone has an idea on it, they can just ping me in the chat box. Yeah. So as we look into this, so the decorators in Python are some essential functions. So they add some functionalities to an existing function in Python without changing the structure and the function itself. So they are represented. They have been represented with at the right underscore decorators underscore name. They have been represented in that way, and in Python are called in a bottom up fashion. They have been called as in bottom up fashion. So as we jump into the next question, what is a lambda function? What is its? Why is it used? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. So as we look into this lambda function in Python, so it's an anonymous function, so that can accept any number of arguments. So the only uh, which has only a single expression in it. So it is generally used in situations which are requiring an anonymous functions for a very short period of time. So this lambda functions can be used in either of two ways, by assigning lambda functions to a variable or wrapping lambda functions inside some other variable, other functions. So that's how it works. So what's the as we jump into the next question, what's the difference between X range and range in Python? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this X range and range are quite similar in terms of functionality. So they both generate a sequence of integers, with the only difference with the range returns as Python list, whereas this X range returns as X range object. So as we jump into the next question, so while importing data from different sources, can can the pandas library recognize the dates? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, yes, they can, but with a bit of help. We need to add this phrases underscore dates arguments while we are reading the sources. So consider an example where we read this data from a CSV file. So the CSV, Excel, these are the formats of the file, right? So as per the format, we have to read the file. So we may encounter different date times formats that are not readable by the pandas library. In that case, this pandas provide flexibility to build our custom date phrases with the help of these lambda functions. So that's how it actually works. So as we jump into the next question, so what do you understand by NumPy library? So what have you, if you have any idea on it, you can just ping those things in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, so this NumPy is one of the most popular, easy to use, versatile, open source, Python based general purpose package. So this is used for processing NumPy arrays. So this is short for numerical Python. So it is very famous for its highly optimized tools, which in high performance and powerful n-dimensional arrays, which are processing features, and they basically explicit the work on complex arrays. So due to this popularity and powerful performance with respect to the things array flexibility, complex explicit design and all. So to perform various operations like trigonometric, algebraic, statistical operations. So it is most commonly used in performing scientific computations and various broadcasting functions. So that's an importance of this NumPy library. So as we jump into the next question, so differentiate between a package and a module in Python. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, so the module is a single Python file. A module can import other modules as files, Python files, objects, whereas a package is a folder or a directory which do have different sub packages and the modules reside. So a Python module is created by saving a file with an extension of .py. This file will have classes and functions that are reusable in the codes as well as across the modules. So let's jump into the next one. Define pip. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this pip, so pip it basically stands for Python installer package. So as the name indicates, it's used for installing different Python modules. So it is a command line tool providing a seamless interfaces for installing different Python modules. So it researches over the internet of packages, installations, and the working directory without the need of any interaction with the user. So what does this pip actually does is, suppose if you do have a TensorFlow, so the TensorFlow, you're in your console part, you are just using it for the first time. So if you wanna import any sub package from that particular TensorFlow, it might not work because first of all you have to call it, import it. So by which you have to firstly use this pip install the TensorFlow, then you have to restart the console part, and then you have to run the whole thing. Then it will be executed successfully. So that's how it works. So as we jump into the next question, which of the following is the use of ID function in this Python? And the options are: every object doesn't have a unique ID. The ID returns the identity of an object, and all of the mentioned, or none of this. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. So as we look into this, option B, ID returns the identity of the object. So this is the ID function in Python. This is what it does. So as we jump into the next question, which one of the following is the use of function in Python? Function don't provide better modularity for your application. You can't also create your own functions. Functions are reusable pieces of programs and all the mentioned. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, and the option for this is C. The functions are reusable piece of programs and they allow you to give a name to a block of statements, allowing you to just run that block using a specified name anywhere in your program or any number of times you can just execute it. So as we jump into the next question, which of the following is Python tuple? So these were the representations. As per the syntaxes, you have to just pick up a option and just share it in the chat box. So if anyone knows the answer, they can just go in. And we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, as per the thing, D tuples are represented with round braces. So as we jump into the next question, what are the two main things of functions in Python? And the options are system functions, custom, built-in, and user-defined functions or user-defined functions. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. So as we look into this, it's C, option C, both the built-in function and user-defined function. So these are the two main functions in Python programming language. So as we jump into the next question, which one of the following is not a keyword in Python? And the options are pass, eval, assert, and non-local. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. So as we look into this, and it's a value, this is a keyword. So as we jump into the next question, so where is a function defined? Whether it's defined inside a module, inside a class, or it is defined inside another function, or all the options which have been mentioned. So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, and the option is A. D. All the mentions like either inside a function, inside some other function, and in a module, we can define a function. So as we jump into the next question, which of the following function is a built-in function in Python? Factorial, print, speed, seed, or square? So if anyone knows the answer, can ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah, obviously the option is B, print. So as we jump into the next question, what will be the output for the Python following code? Suppose I want to print abc dot def, and if I use this capitalized function, what would be my output from these four options? So if anyone has an idea, they can just ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah, and by using this capitalized function A, it only capitalizes the first letter of that particular state. If it's lowercase, it converts into upper, and if it's upper, it converts to lower. So as we jump into the next question, what would be the output of the following code from the below mentioned options? So if anyone has an idea, they can just ping me in the chat box, and we'll discuss the answer within a minute. Yeah. So as we look into this, and the option for this is B, padding is done towards the right hand side first, then the final string of it of even length. So that's it for the day, guys. Thanks for joining the session, and we'll meet you in the next session. Hope